Thank you everybody for coming to the June 2025 LGBTQIA plus commission meeting. We're going to start with roll call. Please say aye if you are here. Leonard Ordovich.
Aye.
Catherine Calhoun. CC. I can see her there. CC, I need you to say aye. All right, we'll come back to that. Julian McLean.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find a mute button. It was like hidden. I'm here, sorry.
You're all good, don't worry. Okay. Julian does not seem to be present yet. Richard Parsakian.
Here.
Wonderful. Shanti Porter. Sarah Rosso.
I'm here.
Wonderful. Derek Tynes. Guillermo Velasquez.
Here.
Kevin Carroll. Barb Warwick. Like you're almost a proxy. I think she's gonna be here. Donald Donovan.
Here.
Alexander Gray.
Present.
And last but not least, Anne-Marie Ellison.
Aye.
Wonderful. All right, we have met quorum for our June meeting. Starting with reading and approval of minutes, I will take full responsibility. I was not able to get the May minutes done, but we can approve the March and April minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the March and April minutes?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
A second.
I don't know who seconded, but we're going to say Donnie. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those against, please say nay. All right, we have approved our minutes. Wonderful. And I will get us our May minutes for the next meeting. We should be all caught up, excuse me. Going on to acknowledgement of public comment. We have not gotten any specific public comment. We did have 2 people that reached out and said that they would like to learn more about the commission, but nothing specifically like a question or an ask of the commission. So I'm going to follow up with them and just send them the information of how they can become a commissioner. But otherwise, as usual, if anybody wants to submit any public comment, you can do so on the commission's website, on the city website. Do any of our co-chairs, specifically I see CC is here, have any reports to give?
No reports on my end.
All right, no, thank you. And Alex, do you have any reports to give?
No, not in particular.
Wonderful. Moving along. Part of our special committees are momentum building. I wanted to give a quick debrief on Pride. First and foremost, thank you to all of the commissioners that were able to join me. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Pride month. The Pride Parade and the festival were absolutely lovely. We handed out literally all of the materials we had. Lenny was a huge part of that. He was literally shoving cards in everyone's hands. So it was very, very happy to see all that enthusiasm. We had multiple people thank us for the resources, express they were really, really happy to see CHR's resources available to them, specifically to understand that they were a part of the protected classes. I am going, oh, come on in, I'm sorry. I'm going to be printing about 1,000 of them to be able to give out through the rest of the year. We also had talked before about possibly doing a town hall later in the year. So I think that would also be a great opportunity to give out some resources to folks. In the future, I am going to be creating a line in the budget. I'm going to be creating a line in the budget specifically for festival fees so that we always have the money to be able to pay for tabling or any other kind of event space that we might need at future like LGBTQIA Pride parades or any kind of other festival. Did anybody else want to comment on Pride? Please.
I was in the march and I had a big concern of the lack of security at the intersections. There was some barriers, but I felt it was inadequate just in case something might have happened. A truck could have easily plowed through any of those intersections as we were marching. And I know we have to be very vigilant in the future and now. So that was a concern as we were walking along through the city of Pittsburgh.
Thank you for that, Richard. I'm happy to pass that along to Dina for future Pride planning, as well as her conversations with public safety. But I appreciate you bringing that up. Did anybody else have any comments or thoughts on Pride? Seeing none, I'm going to move along to Outfest planning. Just wanted to let everybody know that we had our initial meeting. We have some baseline understanding as to where our location may be, the overall kind of atmosphere of Outfest. I'm going to be sending out an invite after this meeting, probably tomorrow, for the second meeting, after I've had some conversations internally about the kind of support we can get from the city, et cetera, et cetera. But I just want to let everybody know that is moving and grooving, and we are looking at October 11th as the festival date. Okay? Any questions there? Seeing none, moving along to unfinished business. Unfinished business is going to stay unfinished for this month. Both the unisex restroom recommendations is kind of in limbo right now. I have to follow up with both DPW and our Department of Planning to figure out what next steps look like there. I know Barb has been a huge help with that as well, and so we can follow up on that. SOGI training, I'm going to have a conversation with HR about allocating some money in their budget potentially to be able to train HR so that they are able to get the training that is needed to be able to pass along that education. So there's not much going on there, but I wanted to make sure everybody was well informed as we continue to keep that in kind of the unfinished business pile. Any questions there? Wonderful. Moving on to why we have so many amazing guests today. So Barb reached out and said that her office is bringing about some legislation that is specific to our community later this month, and thought it would be very important for the entire commission to be well informed on it. So I'm going to hand it over to them. And if anybody has any questions or thoughts, feel free to ask.
Yeah, I'll read that. That's all right. Hi, everybody. Laura Benko, staff in my office. So there are a couple of pieces of legislation that we'd like to talk about. So I'm going to go to the first one, and the second one is related to the Commission on Human Relations. So I'll let Rachel take it from there. I have some slides, so I'll just give sort of the highest level view first if we go through the slides. And some folks online, Nikki and Casey helped draft the legislation. So after we blow through the slides, I will let them jump in and jump in with anything that I miss. So, hello. So background on sort of what brought us to this legislation. And I'm sure as everybody in this room knows, at the federal and state level, there's legislative attacks on LGBTQIA plus identities. So at state and federal level, there are laws that are passing or being introduced that restrict drag performance, ban the display of pride flags, banning or limiting gender care, preventing school staff from using students of good pronouns, and preventing transgender athletes from participating in athletics. So we're in, sure, we all know very hostile, threatening time, to be clear. And so the mechanism that sort of legally we are looking at is deprioritization, which is something that we've done before. The reason for that is we as a city cannot say, oh, this federal law doesn't apply here. What we can say is this law will be deprioritized for enforcement in this city. Like our police, our resources will not be going toward the enforcement of this. So we've done this a couple of times before. One, in the event that reproductive care, including abortion, is criminalized. The other, in the event that gender affirming care is criminalized. Both of those things have been deprioritized. So looking at the actual text, it references a protected class. And the protected classes are what have been identified in policy as what you cannot discriminate against based on housing. So that includes race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, place of birth, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, community status, age, status of the victim of domestic violence, disability, etc. So this ordinance is specifically in response to attacks on queer and especially trans people, but any member of a protected class would be covered in the event of further laws that target their identity specifically. So this is sort of the meat of it here, is a conduct that is otherwise legal except for a person's identity becomes illegal. So for example, if at the state or federal level a law passes that says it is illegal for a trans person to enter a volleyball league or some kind of athletic, that is not criminalizing the action of joining a volleyball league. That is criminalizing the identity of being trans. So in the event that a law that targets identity and not conduct is passed, that is deprioritized for enforcement to the furthest extent possible. So that's essentially the crux of it. And just want to shout out on this slide, Nikki online for thinking of that sort of mechanism and way to specify identity-based, ways to prevent identities from being criminalized. Here's some examples of actions which we are looking to deprioritize for enforcement, the things that feel like they are possible to be criminalized at the state or federal level. But this is including but not limited to. So this is not the list. This is a list of examples, and specifically the list of examples that feel like sort of more imminent threats right now, and the reason for trying to get this legislation passed. So we've gone over a lot of that, but using restroom facilities that for gender identity, seeking and obtaining gender from medical care, seeking and obtaining legal documentation, identifying somebody by their chosen name, gender identity. So not a comprehensive list, but a list of examples. So ideally for us, we are hoping to introduce this bill along with two other bills, one of which is sex work decriminalization or reducing the penalties for sex work proceeding in the city of Pittsburgh, which the commission heard in March, I believe. March meeting in February.
Yes, and we wrote a letter of support. Yes.
Yes. So with this legislation next week, along with the piece of legislation that I will hand it over to Rachel to talk about next. But in the interim, I'll just say also, this is what we are hoping is that these three pieces are a first step. We are not sort of thinking, well, if we've done this, then everything's good. Good job, everybody. We're done. We're hoping that these pieces of legislation also start further conversations about ways we need to protect marginalized, especially trans people, and other maybe groups that we can think about too. That's it for me. I will ask Nikki, especially anything that you think is important to mention or to.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for working with the community on this. I was approached by some community members who wanted to make sure that we're responding to the moment with something that protects our community. You mentioned the mechanism. I based the first draft of this provision on similar legislation that was proposed to decriminalize conduct that was otherwise legal, but for the actor's HIV status. And I expanded that to LGBTQ plus identity, but it was important to me at the onset that we make sure that while this is especially relevant to our community, that we include all protected statuses to maintain solidarity, and of course, all of our liberation is connected. It's a bit of an odd provision in that it's not really creating law. It's just affirming the city of Pittsburgh's commitment to upholding civil rights protections, which, you know, it's not a place where I thought we would be, but I think it's something that's really necessary when we look at the policy landscape right now. Some proposals that I was responding to when I was thinking of this were a proposal in Texas to criminalize using a chosen name if you're doing it for gender affirming purposes. And Laura mentioned criminalizing trans athletes. There were some attacks at the federal level to get law enforcement to criminalize trans athletes for conduct that is otherwise obviously legal for someone who isn't trans. So it's yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. It's not new law, it's upholding our existing civil rights protections. But I think it's necessary considering those we shouldn't be taking those for granted these days. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thanks. Oh, also, I'm here in my personal capacity. Hi, Sarah.
Thank you for that presentation. Do any of the commissioners have questions about this specific legislation before we move on?
I guess, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess it's to like, it's to deprioritize what could be criminal is, I'm not really good at law here or anything, but like protecting in a sense the identity. So it's the focus is not necessarily on the action, but the identity, but also deprioritizing the identity in a sense.
So like the enforcement, so if it became illegal to do like a drag story hour
Yeah.
or something like that, right? From the federal, just like hypothetically, right? The federal government says, drag, whatever. Working with children is illegal if you are trans. In Pittsburgh, we would say, okay, but if if you're doing that, we're not gonna do anything about it. Right, we're not gonna enforce that law. To the extent possible.
And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was talking to the exec team earlier about last week about this. I was using the comparison of breast augmentation, the idea that like if a cis woman wants breast augmentation, there isn't any law preventing her from doing that. But if suddenly like a trans woman wants breast augmentation and there's a law saying that she can't get gender affirming care, then that would be identity based and not like the idea of you getting breast augmentation being the crime itself. And thus you wouldn't enforce and put somebody in jail or charge somebody with something for getting something that anyone else would be able to do if they didn't have the same identity. Does that make sense, Donnie? Do you feel like that answers your question?
Yeah. It's just it's wild that we're in this space, but I understand why it's needed, and I really thank you, Nikki, for coming today and everything. So.
And I think too, as part of this, we're gonna really stress, we're gonna invite all the electeds who represent Allegheny County. From the state, from the federal level on down, and hopefully, get everybody to commit to like, this is just a first step, right? Because we can only do so much in Pittsburgh, right? We only have control over what the Pittsburgh police do, right? So, but we would like to see these things expanded out to the county, to the state, you know what I mean? If we could get, that would just kind of broaden the protections for folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowing that you guys are bringing this to council shortly, what would be the best way for the commission to support this legislation? Like showing up in person, a statement of some sort of support, like what kind of things would you guys like as far as show support?
Yes.
Yes.
I think a statement in support would be wonderful. Before the end of the week, if possible. I know that's a turnaround on holiday. But I think that's the thing. And the plan is to have a press conference on Tuesday, the morning of Tuesday, the 24th. So council meets at 10 a.m. So prior to that, at 9 a.m., a press conference announcing the introduction of the legislation. And it would be great to have folks from the commission there and support. If you know folks who think really sort of spreading the word, saying if you want to come out and support this, and this organization makes sense to reach out to them. I think sort of helping spread the word in the community would also be
Absolutely. So I'll start with statement. Is there a motion to create a statement of support from the commission for this legislation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. All right, that is passed unanimously. I'm happy to create that draft, send to them, have them prove it, give it right back to you. Well, that's not a problem. Secondly, this does not have to be something we're voting on, but if any commissioners are available Tuesday morning and would like to come and show support at the city county building, would you mind emailing me? I can be there in my capacity, obviously, as the mayor's LGBTQ liaison, but also want to extend that to anybody that is available. So no pressure if you can't make it, but if you can, that would be wonderful as a show of support. Any other questions before we move on to the next legislation? Wonderful. Okay. Right.
Oh, sorry. I just want to add, in case it's helpful, I do have a communications template, like an email template, to send out to potential supporters. That would be useful to anyone. I don't know if
Please,
we can
Nikki,
get that out
send
to
it
the
my way.
community.
That'd be very, very helpful.
Perfect.
Yeah, so yeah. Thanks, Nikki. I was say, yeah, Casey also was not phoned up to the bill, so thanks for being here, Casey. So this next piece of legislation is from the Commission on Human Relations. So Rachel, are you comfortable just taking it from here?
Sure. First, good to see you all again. It's been a while, but thanks for having me to talk about this. And thank you to Laura and Councilperson Warwick to bringing this to our attention and really helping to drive this forward. So the piece of the code that we're looking to add would be under the civil rights protections for public accommodation. And it will explicitly keep anyone in the medical field within the city of Pittsburgh limits from discriminating against someone it'll keep them from refusing, withholding, or denying any person an elective medical treatment that would otherwise be provided to someone but for their gender identity or expression. So this is something that's already technically covered by the public accommodations portion of our code. You can't be denied those kinds of services based on a protected status. Gender identity and expression remain a protected status within the city of Pittsburgh. We're making this more explicit so that it is very clear to the public and to any providers that this is something that we're not going to tolerate. And this would be enforceable under our portion of the code with our discrimination investigations and the enforcement procedures that follow. I don't know that there's much more than that. It's just, I wanted to mention it at this point that the state protection for sex is being challenged. As we're aware, it's specifically towards the education piece because of the school sports and the transgender athletes. But should they prevail with that, they could be affecting the protections for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression for the entire state on the basis of employment, housing, the public services, everything. So they're challenging what it means under the PHRA to what is included in the sex basis. So we're paying attention to that. But also in better news, the Allegheny County Human Relations Commission is currently hiring a director. So they will soon have actual staff to provide enforcement for their portion of the code. And they also have gender identity and expression protections at the county level. So just to share that information with you all.
Rachel, could you explain a little bit just for folks, what services the commission provides? So like, say I come to the, so let's say we pass this and then I come to the commission and I say, my provider is discriminating against me. They won't, whatever, provide whatever care. What happens next?
Yeah, so we have a formal complaint process where folks can come to us. We'll collect information at intake just to make sure that it falls within our purview. It has to, again, be in the city of Pittsburgh within the last 365 days, be based on discriminatory behavior for a protected status that's covered under city code. And we've got so many of them now. So those are the qualifications. We'll collect information, draft a complaint, and then we serve that on whoever has done the discrimination. So then they have a 30-day period to respond to that. And then we engage in a formal investigation process. We're just a neutral third party collecting information, and based on what we collect during an investigation, we'll determine whether it's likely that discrimination occurred or did not. That's entirely based on the evidence and anything that we collect during interviews or what have you throughout the investigation process. And if we do find that folks have discriminated, then when we call it a probable cause finding. And when we have a probable cause finding, we have the ability to force a conciliation process. So we mandate that folks come to the table and try to remedy the situation. Like we're saying, hey, we have enough evidence to say that you've done something wrong here. We're asking you to come and sit down and try to fix this. And sometimes that works. Usually it works. Other times it does not, but we do have a public hearing process that can follow that. And essentially that's a rehash of the entire case, with fresh eyes from our commissioners. And we can, take it public, and then that provider will be very much on blast for what they have done. And we have the power to issue an order at the end of that process if the commissioners again affirm that there's been some discriminatory conduct or refusal of services, and we can enforce that in court if we have to.
Great.
And I should note that we also have our deputy director Chris Solt and our administrative assistant Kevin Carroll on as well. So if I've missed anything, please chime in.
Rachel, how will you address religious exemptions in any of this?
That's a good point. There are various religious exemptions in like the public accommodation space, but not specifically tied to the medical care as far as I'm aware. It is something that we would have to kind of look at on a case by case basis. For the most part, they have to have some kind of legitimate non-discriminatory business reason for why they're denying the service or the treatment. And if the basis for that is, oh, I see that you're trying to transition, I'm not giving you any kind of gender affirming care, whether or not that's a procedure that would otherwise be offered to anyone, then that's what we're looking at.
Rachel, can you speak to the implications for UPMC, specifically around them denying gender affirming care to minors?
The issue with the minors, so when we're looking at their closure of the gender affirming care like department, right? That's based on a federal mandate that they will do that, otherwise they will lose federal funding. So we as the commission cannot force them into the market to do that kind of particular service. Now, when we're talking about individuals experiencing discrimination, say that someone who is already working with UPMC has a provider, has ongoing care, and they're maybe just starting to try and cut them off because they're saying, well, we're just not doing that anymore. It's not the same as the closure of the department is just not on the same level as like the individual denial. So we can look at those individual denials. And if we had enough of those kinds of cases, we can do a commission initiated to take that forward. But I mean, we haven't received very many inquiries to be able to justify that. I would note that on the position of the minors not receiving care, their guardian would have to be the one to actually sign the complaint for them, but that is possible. Go ahead, Chris. I know you're.
There we go. Sorry. So I just wanted to add in that when we constructed this, we set it up on a but-for basis, which is to say that the structure of how this is going to be done is that you cannot deny anybody any care that you would provide them, but for the fact that you perceive or are aware of the fact that they are transitioning. And the reason that we structured it this way is not just because kind of logically that's what makes the most sense, but also that's probably what has the best chance of standing up in court should somebody go to court to challenge it. Because then they can't argue that we're carving out a special exemption. What we're doing is we're just making it so that special exemptions aren't possible, essentially.
I think the example.
That helps clarify.
The breast augmentation.
Yeah, the breast augmentation, right? Because so like if I'm a cis woman who is doing breast augmentation because it makes me
Feel good.
or even feel more like
Yeah. My gender.
my gender, so to speak, I can't deny that same care to someone else.
Yes,
Correct.
just because they
You-
have to be transitioning, yeah.
No doctor would hesitate to, say, conduct hair removal surgery for someone who was not transitioning, and so therefore they would not be allowed to do it for somebody who they suspect is.
Mm-hmm.
Is probably the easiest way of explaining it.
Any other questions there about specifically this? Can I call it legislation? Or is it okay? This legislation from CHR. Seeing none, following the question I had for the last bit, what would be most helpful from the commission to support this legislation?
Similar action to what you've already discussed, just statements in support, being present to give some sort of public comment. We really we want to be able to provide this clarity for the community, and having the support of this commission would help us do that.
Wonderful. All right, we'll start with a statement of support. Do I have a motion for a statement of support? I see Richard. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm gonna give it to Derek. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. All right, pass. All right, I'm more than happy to start drafting that statement. Any language you guys have that already is existing that you could share with me would be very helpful. Otherwise, I'll send that to the exec team and try to get that passed as quickly as possible so I can share that with you. Otherwise, do you have any events coming up that we should be aware of that we can like physically attend or show support?
So we're celebrating the 70th anniversary of the commission on July 1st. We're having a press conference out on the portico at noon. just to highlight the work that's been done by the commission thus far and where we're going with the work that we're doing. So everyone is welcome to attend that, obviously. We're also having an employment discrimination, continued legal education course, which offers free CLE credits to those who need it. That'll be July 23rd. It's a Wednesday. There's no fee associated with that, and we're hoping to have that right here in the city county building. But that goes through the full employment discrimination process between us and the EEOC, so we can go through the differences and similarities there and how we can be supportive of any attorneys in that space, in the civil rights space, for when they aren't really sure how to work with us. We're also looking at having an additional fair housing for landlords training in July. I'm still trying to nail down Megan Hammond from the Fair Housing Partnership for a date for that. But once I have that, I can share that with you all. And again, free training. We just like to share the information that we've got and make sure that people know better.
Wonderful.
What time is that, sir? Noon?
Yeah. Rachel, thank you very much for that. I'm gonna send a reminder to all the commissioners about those two upcoming events, both the June 24th morning of, you said, 9 a.m. Press conference related to the deprioritization. Gosh, that is a tongue twister. You did that seamlessly throughout your presentation, as well as the July 1st noon press conference related to CHR's legislation.
I just want to also note real quick, so the presser on the 24th next week will include deprioritization. The piece that Rachel just talked about, relations and discrimination in gender equity care, and the reducing the penalties for sex work in the city of Pittsburgh. So all three of the bills that have been recommended by the commission, all introduced, all the professors.
We'll all be there.
All of them.
Phenomenal. Okay. I love this. I love that. Okay, great. So I will send that reminder to make sure everybody's aware, and if anybody is available, I know everybody's a very busy person and has their own stuff going on, but if you are available, I would love to see that support in person. I will definitely be there. I'm more than happy to support in my capacity. Otherwise, did you all want to take some time to talk about the upcoming sex worker legislation?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to explain what everyone else is signing on for as well. My name is Teresa Nightingale. I'm here on behalf of the For a Safer Sex Work Coalition of Pittsburgh. And for the last 2 years, I've been working with Barb here to help draft legislation, and Laura, to help draft legislation to lessen the penalties for adult consensual sex work. So this would be a tool for the police to use if they came across folks that were engaging in, again, adult consensual sex work. Instead of getting a misdemeanor charge that would stay on their record, they would then have to they would have to have a summary offense charge instead. So just basically like a speeding ticket, instead of having a permanent charge and a much larger fine associated with the getting in trouble there. I basically based this on the ordinance I helped pass in 2015 or 2016. Yeah, 2016. That would for marijuana in the city of Pittsburgh. That was basically the same gist. Instead of you getting a misdemeanor fine, you got a summary offense, or instead of a misdemeanor charge, you got a summary offense fine. And this would still make it so that the police can still go after people who are being trafficked, children, people who are clearly not, following the letter of the law. But this would help a lot of marginalized communities. After looking over the data over the last 7 years in the city, we found that the majority of people that were being arrested were women, people of color, and people that would fall underneath the LGBTQIA community. So basically, like anything else in this world, arrests are not in a vacuum. It's the same kind of communities that are being targeted again and again. We've reached out to the majority of the city council folks. Most of them seem on board. We haven't had too much kickback. We've also reached out to about 20 plus organizations in the city of Pittsburgh as well. Everyone from Allies in Health and Wellbeing to Trans Uniting to National Lawyers Guild to the Jewish Women's Federation to Wrench and Point Pittsburgh and so on and so forth. Basically all our friends and neighbors that we all know that are in the same group, such as the ones we usually all run around in. And yeah, I'm optimistic and I'm very excited that the press conference and the rally is happening. Dina Stanley was someone who helped us craft some specific language in this ordinance that specifically includes LGBTQIA folks. So it's not just a vagary kind of ordinance, it actually includes that community as well. And yeah, that's basically the summary of what that's all about. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Great. And we already gave statements of support, so I'm
Yes.
very happy about that. Does anybody have any follow-up questions about this legislation? All right, seeing none, thank you again for all of the incredible work that all of you are doing. I will get you a statement, I will get CHR a statement. I'm more than happy to attend anything and everything to be supported. I will let the commissioners know so that they can attend. If there's anything else that comes up that you guys need, please let me know. Yeah. All right, moving on. We have a item specific to the LGBTQIA Commission's ordinance. So for anybody just that needs a little bit of a refresher, so the LGBTQIA Commission is codified. So regardless of any mayoral administration or anything that's going on in city government, you exist as an independent body. The difference is that my role as your staffer is not in your ordinance, which means there is no guarantee that any other mayoral administration is going to give you a staffer, is going to appoint anybody to help you staff, both with event planning, administrative duties, budgeting, et cetera, all of the stuff I kind of do in the background. When I was amending the Gender Equity Commission ordinance, included a role for a staffer in that ordinance. I am proposing that we do something similar with the LGBTQIA Commission, where the language already exists. I'm going to share it with everybody at this very moment. And if we would like, it would be as easy, I say easy relatively, easy as me adding this to our ordinance and sending it to council for them to vote on whether or not we can make this amendment. So let me make sure that it's showing everything. Okay, can everyone see that? Great, so the purpose of this language would just be to ensure that the commission always has a staffer appointed by the mayor to ensure that they are following up on your goals, your recommendations, helping you schedule meetings and events, appointing new commissioners, and overall having a voice in the budget process. The actual language is included right here, very, very short and sweet. We can make changes to this, but this is nearly identical to what is already in the Gender Equity Commission. So I'll give you a moment to read it. And if anybody has any questions or has a motion to make this amendment, please let me know.
I move we adopt the proposal as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about this before we go into a vote? Wonderful. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. All right, that is passed. Wonderful.
Thank you for writing it, Adriana, and thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you, Lenny. And in case anybody is not aware of this, I will not be able to be in my role past December. So this is really to ensure that regardless of what happens in the future, that you all have the support that you need to continue the commission. So very, very happy that we got to that pass very easily. Moving along, we have two recommendations that I wanted to propose to the commission. The first, I do not have current language on. Here, I'm going to get rid of this real quick. First, I do not have existing language on, but this has been something that has been discussed in the mayor's office continuously, which is proposing free menstrual products in city facilities. More than happy to discuss that further. This would be inclusive to both what we would designate as like male and female bath restrooms in all city facilities. We understand that that is going to impact a significant portion of our community, but also this is at the interest of equity and hygiene and accessibility. And so I think I saw Anne-Marie, if you have a question, feel free to chime in, but if anybody else has any thoughts, please feel free to say so.
Oh no, I was just clapping. I love this proposal.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion for this proposal, for this recommendation, excuse me?
I'll move.
It's Cece, I'll second.
Amazing. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say nay. All right, that is passed. And I will write up that recommendation, get it on our website. We can talk through more of that. The last recommendation I wanted to bring up is a little bit more nuanced, so stay with me. I did send the policy, the existing policy, to everybody, but it's okay if you didn't get the chance to read it. Internal to the city government, we have an HR policy called the pregnancy loss leave policy, which if you are experiencing a miscarriage, if you have an abortion, if your IVF fails, anything along those lines, you can take up to 3 days off, as long as you notify HR that this has happened. The difficulty with this is that you would literally have to tell somebody that you are in the midst of a miscarriage or that you are about to have an abortion, which is, as we can imagine, pretty uncomfortable and is really a concern about privacy and such. Other cities have had something a little more broad called reproductive leave, which would actually be much more inclusive to our community as well. So it could be anything from somebody having horrible period pains to somebody having a miscarriage or an abortion to a cis man or somebody getting a vasectomy to somebody getting gender affirming care, and pretty much anything under the umbrella of reproductive health would be counted as reproductive leave. And so I wanted to bring this up as a possible recommendation for the commission, as I can see how it would benefit LGBTQIA employees of the city. So if there's any questions or thoughts on that, feel free to chime in. I'll give it to the board.
Yeah, I definitely support it. I won't get too personal, but I've been through a lot of this myself. One thing that I would also consider too is my partner and I are actually working with a gestational carrier, and so if that weren't to be successful, how that would play into effect as well for the IVF embryo transfer not working. So that's just another potential space and for other, couples, not just in my identity.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I do believe in the current policy, if IVF or something along those lines, it fails, whether it's you or your partner, you do get that time off, which makes total sense. But I would want to make sure that that's as inclusive as possible to like any of the possibilities that you're talking about, Tani. So that makes sense. And thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any thoughts on this recommendation? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, Amory did. Okay. I'm like, if I'm not looking up, I have no idea who's talking. All right. All those in favor of passing this recommendation, please say aye.
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 Wonderful. And anyone against it, please say nay. All right, it is passed. Going on to announcements. I had one formal announcement from CHR. I'm more than happy to pass it off to anybody from CHR to talk a little bit about the housing survey, kind of the second round of it, if they'd like a moment to speak on that.
Adriana, I have to excuse myself.
That's fine, Guillermo. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Bye.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the second round. So you folks might already know that we've done an LGBTQIA plus housing research study here in the city of Pittsburgh to kind of evaluate where we've been with the state of housing in Pittsburgh for our community. And because we've had these protections in the city code for quite some time, and we weren't seeing a lot of traction with that. So we wanted to make sure, like, is there something we can do better? Are there places that we can go and do better outreach, additional training, offer more support? What can we do? And the sample size ended up not being as large as we had hoped. So we're coordinating with our vendor again to run a second round of the survey. So once that's live, I can share that with you all. We appreciate feedback from anyone who either currently lives in the city of Pittsburgh or has lived in the city of Pittsburgh and is in the LGBTQIA plus community. We really just want to learn more about what's going out on the ground and find ways to better address the intersectionality with the communities here and the different protected statuses that are here in the city of Pittsburgh so that we can be supportive and be where we're needed.
Thank you, Rachel. And I already told Chris, when we talked about this earlier this week, I'm happy to talk to our comms department about sharing that out.
Mhm.
I'm going to have a discussion about that tomorrow pretty quickly. I don't think it'll have any issues. But if any of the commissioners have questions, thoughts, or would like to share this with their own networks, please feel free to do so.
I'm also going to stick a plug in really quick for the regular commission meetings, because if anyone on this call is interested in the other things that the commission is working on, any of the progress that we're making, I give a full director's report at every meeting, and our commissioners are just getting more and more engaged all the time. So our monthly meetings are at 3:30 the first Monday of the month, and we do have a Zoom option. So check out our website if you need the link for that.
Thank you. All right. Any other announcements? Please, Richard.
I have been contacted by Salian Klutz from the Office of Public Art concerning the Mosaic housing development. She asked me to be a consultant to two artists that will be installing murals on the interior and exterior. They want to hear about our history. And since I'm one of the elders that know some history, I would love to have, I want to contact Billy Heilman because he knows so much more. But it's nice that they're reaching out to our community to give these artists input on how we see ourselves and how we want to be represented in this new development in the artistic part of it. So I'm very excited to be part of that.
That's wonderful news. Congratulations. I'm very happy to hear that they've reached out to you. That's really great. Anybody else have any announcements? Going once, going twice. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Seeing Derek, do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Hi, Richard.
Please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful Pride Month. I'll see you next month. Thank you so much.